Chapter 7, Gooney Bird Greene. Gooney Bird looked around the classroom. She slid the strap of her cowhide purse from her shoulder and set the purse on the floor below the terrarium table. With her face scrunched into a quiet thinking expression, she unbuttoned her orange fur jacket and hung it on the back of her chair by her desk. Then she returned to the front of the room and faced the class. She was wearing a blue plaid skirt, a white blouse, black tights, and brown lace-up shoes. There were bright blue hair ribbons in her neatly brushed red hair. She looked ordinary. She looked dignified. She looked wise. Out there, invisible, are a lot of stories not yet told, Gooney Bird told the class. Absolutely true ones? Beanie asked in a small voice. Yes, absolutely true.
Absolutely.
What are they? Asked Beanie. Do you remember that my first story was called How Gooney Bird Got Her Name? Gooney Bird asked. Yes, Beanie replied. Well, another is How Beanie Got Her Name. Before I was born, Beanie said, laughing, there was a thing called an ultrasound that showed me curled up inside my mom, and I looked just like a little bean. My mom said lima bean, and my dad said, no, jelly bean. And so that's a fine story beginning, Gooney Bird said. An absolutely true one. You should tell that one on Friday, Beanie. What other invisible stories are out there? Mrs. Pigeon asked. Do you remember that my second story was about how I came from China on a flying carpet? Oh my, yes, Mrs. Pigeon said. I had to look up China in the atlas. Out there, invisible and waiting, Gooney Bird said, is a story called, let me think. She closed her eyes. Is that the title? Let me think, Malcolm asked. No, Gooney Bird said. Gooney Bird opened her eyes. The story is called How Keiko's Family Came to Water Tower. Keiko smiled. Well, they started out on a ship, she said. First, my grandmother and grandfather got on a big ship in Yokohama and went to Honolulu. They were a little scared because they had never been to America before. Mrs. Pigeon, you should get the atlas out. Mrs. Pigeon smiled. I will when you tell your story, Keiko. Maybe next Wednesday? Okay, Keiko said, and I'll bring some pictures. Then how about if I wear a kimono? That wouldn't be distracting like whiskers, would it? It would be lovely, Gooney Bird said. And maybe I could carry a fan and a parasol? Gooney Bird said gently. That would be a little like whiskers, Keiko. Overdoing it? Keiko asked. Overdoing it, Gooney Bird said. What about me? Barry asked. Do I have a story? Of course you do, Gooney Bird told him. You have stories called How Barry Got His Name and How Barry's Family Came to Water Tower and lots of others. Barry grinned. Which one should I tell? He asked. Do you remember that my third story was about my diamond earrings? Barry nodded. My suggestion is that when it's your turn, Barry, you should tell an absolutely true story called When Barry Spent Every Penny He Had on Something He Wanted Really Badly. The class waited and watched Barry Tuckerman as he squinched his face up, thinking. Then he grinned. Okay, he said. I'll tell it, but it's really, really gross. Oh, no, Keiko said. I hate gross. You can cover your ears for Barry's story, Gooney Bird told her. Wear earmuffs that day. Green ones would go nicely with your red sweater, I think. Who else? Who else? The class called. My fourth story was called How Gooney Bird Directed an Orchestra. Mrs. Pigeon suggested. Maybe we could skip that one, Gooney Bird. I know no one in class has ever led an orchestra. Class? Gooney asked. Has anyone ever been late to school because something quite unusual happened? Almost every hand went up. Malcolm, Gooney said. Maybe that story could be your assignment. It could be called Why Malcolm Was Late to School. It could be about the time I was asleep under my bed and my mother couldn't find me in the morning, Malcolm said. Or the time that I dropped my toothbrush in the toilet and when I tried to get it back, oh no! Keiko cried and covered her ears. Don't tell it now and give it away, Malcolm, Gooney said. You work on your story. Make it very suspenseful by adding a suddenly in the middle. Gooney looked around the classroom. All the second graders had taken out paper and pencils. They were all writing down ideas for their stories. And remember my last story about Catman? She reminded them. Has anyone ever lost a beloved pet? Almost every hand went up again, even Mrs. Pigeon's. Could that be my story, Gooney Mrs. Pigeon said. I had a parakeet named Brucey, and somehow the door to his cage was left open and... Next Tuesday, Gooney said, how I lost Brucey. And found him again, Mrs. Pigeon said with a happy smile. My story has a surprise ending. Mine will be how I lost Gretchen Guinea Pig, Tricia said. Mine has a sad ending. You know what? Said standing up. It's lunchtime already. Let's skip arithmetic today, class. The students put the arithmetic books back in their desks. They reached for lunch boxes instead. Gooney took out a grapefruit, a cucumber, and some dill pickles. I'm having a completely vegetarian day today, she explained. But look at this dessert for the whole class. She held up a bulky paper bag. What is it? The children asked. Gooney grinned. 63 gumballs, she said. After I give them out, I'm going to teach you a wonderful whirling dance called the Tarantella. Suddenly, Felicia Ann looked up from the floor. Shouldn't we all hug and kiss first? She said in a surprisingly loud voice. Thank you for suggesting that, Felicia Ann, Gooney replied. Of course we should. And so they did. The end.